Now we're going to talk about z-scores. Maybe you took a nice break in there. First of all, let's talk about what they are. They describe how many standard deviations away from the mean a data point is. Okay, they're a system for standardizing scores, which makes it easier to compare data values measured on different scales. So any distribution of raw scores can be converted to a distribution of z-scores. We can change anything to a z-score, okay? The key is the mean of the distribution of a z-score is 0. Positive z-scores represent scores that are above the mean, and negative z-scores represent scores that are below the mean. This is the formula we're going to use to find them, okay? And this is telling us this is the mean, not the mean, sorry, this is your data in the data set, that's your mean, and then that's your standard deviation. So let's look at an example. It says, suppose SAT scores among college students are normally distributed with a mean of 500 and a standard deviation of 100. If a student scores 700, what's their z-score? So that's our data, okay? So the x is 700, our mean is 500, and then our standard deviation is 100, and then we just plug into that formula. So I have 700 minus 500 gives me 200. 200 divided by 100 gives me a z-score of 2. That tells me I'm 2 standard deviations above the mean. Okay, now we're going to look at how we can use that to compare. So this one says, a set of math test scores has a mean of 70 and a standard deviation of 8. A set of English test scores has a mean of 74 and a standard deviation of 16. For which test would a score of 78 have a higher standing? So I got a 78 on English, I got a 78 on math, but those 78s aren't actually equivalent. So what we do is we find the z-score. So I say, okay, 78 minus that mean of 70 on math over the standard deviation of 8 gives the math a z-score of 1. Okay, so I'm 1 standard deviation above the mean. In English, that's 78 minus the average of 74 over the standard deviation of 16 gives me a z-score of 0.25, which means I'm only 0.25 standard deviations above the mean. So, because 1 is greater than 0.25, the math test score, though it's the same grade as English, has a relatively better standing. I did relatively better on my math test than on my English test. Go me.